Hello, I'm David from Barclays.
He's lying.
I'm currently in the process of upgrading your account.
No, he isn't.
So I just need your full password.
No, he doesn't. He's a scam.
Once I've got that, I can send you a link to access the account.
That's also a scam. Every year, millions are lost to fraud. At Barclays, we'll never ask for your full password or PIN, so never give it out.
Thanks for your time.
At least that's true.
Thousands of scam sites are continuing to use fake celebrity endorsements to trick people into parting with their cash.
Fraudsters normally create fake ads on social media platforms using well-known faces like billionaire boss Sir Richard Branson.
And Martin Lewis as well, because along with Sir Richard Branson, they are the two most scammed faces in the country.
Worst compliment I've ever had, I have to tell you.
Over the past 4 years, there's been an epidemic of scams, exacerbated because of the pandemic. They often look like articles wrongly claiming that public figures have endorsed them or backed financial investments, resulting in damaging effects not only on people's wallets and bank accounts, but on their mental health. We're joined by retired teacher Teresa Jackson. Now, Teresa was scammed out of an astonishing £120,000 because she responded to a fake Bitcoin advert which illegally used Bear Grylls' face to make it look legitimate. And the Labour MP for Barking and Dagenham, Dame Margaret Hodge, who's an online harms campaigner and believes the government must do more to protect people. Let's start. Thank you both very much indeed for joining us. Teresa Jackson, I can imagine you thought you were the sort of person who would never fall for something that would effectively loot £120,000 from your bank account.
Absolutely. I've never touched my savings. Part of my pension was in that pot as well. So they were very, very sophisticated. Once I saw the advert, which was a believable advert, and of course endorsing someone quite famous.
So tell us about the advert that you saw. What platform were you on, and what did the advert seem to say?
Instagram, and it was just basically saying how Bear Grylls made his fortune on Bitcoin trading. And I was at home during the pandemic. I just thought, why not? I'm going to open an account and see what it takes me.
Can I take a guess?
Yes.
Did they ask you for £250 first?
Absolutely, £250.
Always £250.
To open the account.
It's a snifter. It's to tempt you in. And once you put the first amount of money in, you're now invested, you now care, you're now monitoring, and I bet they told you it was doing well, but you needed to put more in, didn't they?
Yes, that's exactly what happened.
And at every stage, they seem to be utterly persuasive, the technology they're using. And did you actually speak to people at the company as well?
Yes, I had a financial advisor. He was very knowledgeable about Bitcoin and investments and all the kinds of Bitcoins, all kinds of investments you can do, scalping, swinging. And that's how he persuaded me every time. Swinging was more risky, so take a scalping, you need more money in to be allowed to do that. And every time I was checking, making notes and going off and checking.
It's probably important for me to tell people at this point that you almost certainly weren't invested in Bitcoin or anything to do with Bitcoin. This isn't about Bitcoin. These are criminals who are just taking your money and using Bitcoin, much like they use me. As someone who's trusted on money, they use Bitcoin because everyone knows the price goes up as another way just to draw you in. It wasn't a financial advisor. We call them scammers. It wasn't a scammer. It's a thief. It was a criminal.
It's criminal.
Stealing your money.
Yes.
There was a point where you thought your investments had generated a profit.
Yes.
Because that was the scam. So you thought, right, I'll cash out now.
Yes, because some of the tradings were not coming to fruition. And I queried that. And this financial advisor said that, the market is really regulating itself. So I thought, well, in that case, I will close my account now, take my profits, and then maybe at a later stage, I will invest again.
And you then were told you needed money in order to do that, which led to you stopping using your own money, but having to borrow money from a friend.
Yes.
And this, you borrowed £25,000 from a friend. You had to take out a bank loan of £18,000 because the scammers told you that you needed to pay a tax as well. I mean, they were just milking you, weren't they, for money?
Yes.
And you couldn't withdraw. The trouble is, not only did you lose a huge amount of money, £120,000 in all, but it's damaged, hasn't it, the bond that you have with friends and family, which must have had a massive impact on your support system and your mental health.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, the friend who actually lent me the money, I think it affected our relationship after.
Of course.
You know, it's very hard. With my daughters was hard because they tried to advise me, maybe do not invest all your money in the same company. But I was just so sure they were legitimate.
Well, what I find astonishing in this whole situation is how these adverts are allowed to appear on online sites. We have regulators, which means that they can't advertise on television.
Correct.
We have regulators, which means they wouldn't be allowed to advertise in newspapers. How on earth are these adverts allowed to appear on online sites? We've put fake on these adverts. They don't appear with fake.
I'm sitting here in a cold fury, if I'm honest, as I listen to this. And can I just say to you, I mean, you said it was astonishing. It's not for me. I had someone lose £100,000 this weekend. I've had someone lose £200,000. I cannot tell you how many people in your position I've spoken to. But you are so brave because people won't talk about it because it damages their financial health and their mental health when they're scammed. And you are wonderful for coming on to help us spread the message. So just a personal thanks from me to you for doing this. It's really appreciated. Susanna, you ask how? Well, people will know I sued Facebook. I settled out of court for £3 million to set up Citizens Advice Scam Action, and Facebook now in the UK has the only scam ads reporting button in the world. But the truth is, we have an epidemic of scams, and it is not policed. You will have been told to report it to Action Fraud. If I were here in my money-saving expert role, I would be telling you to report it to Action Fraud. In this role, which is slightly more political, I will be honest, Action Fraud is mostly pointless. They will not investigate if you report it to them. I bet they said we don't have resources and we don't have enough way to deal with it.
Not lines of to investigate because the corporate headquarters were in Switzerland, which is utterly rubbish, if I may say that, because they had an address in London. They had telephone numbers in London. So
we have massively under-resourced. It's not the police's fault. It's the fact that Action Fraud has no money. This is the biggest crime in the country. And we have an online safety bill going to go through Parliament, which will police user-generated scams, but bizarrely does not include scam adverts, which I am campaigning on. So if you go on a dating site to do a romance fraud and you post your profile, you're covered. If you pay to promote it, so it now becomes an advert, it's not covered. It's ludicrous.
Let's talk to Dame Margaret Hodge about that. Dame Margaret Hodge, I mean, it's absolutely heartbreaking. People still being lured in and losing their life savings, borrowing money from family and friends. I mean, what is being done to tackle this and what isn't?
Well, first of all, I agree with everything that Martin said. I've been a campaigner on financial crime for a long time, and fraud is now the most common form of crime. Online has become like the Wild West. It's become really a place where fraud just takes place without impunity, and I agree. It's not just the money that's gone; it's the heartache, it's the everything that happens to individuals and their families and their friends as a result of that fraud. I just put one figure on the table, Martin, which I'm sure you know better than I do. Although a third of all crime comes from fraud, only 1% of police money and time is spent on tackling fraud. So we've got this great opportunity now with the bill that the government has said they're going to bring forward, the online harms bill, where I'm campaigning for something else as well. I'm campaigning to have anonymity go for online harms because of what that creates. But we've got the opportunity to use that. And can I explain, Susanna, what it would mean? It's pretty easy, and Martin's done all the work. So I'm hoping to partner with him and work on the bill with amendments on the bill with him. All the platforms, whether it's Google or whether it's Facebook, they make money out of those ads. That's where their money come. Larry Page, who founded Google some 20 years ago, is now worth over $52 billion. He's a rich, rich man. And I think what we should be doing is asking those online platforms, instructing them to look at the ads that are put on their platforms and to make sure that they're not scam adverts. And if they fail to do that properly, we could do two things. One, they could pay back the money that people have had taken from them unlawfully. Or two, and I'd like both to be in the bill, we could create a criminal sanction. So make it a crime for the directors of companies like Facebook and Google not to vet adverts to make sure they're legit. And if they fail to do that properly in a reasonable way, then they can be criminally prosecuted. And I tell you, I don't know if Martin agrees with me. If we did those things, then I think at a stroke, you wouldn't do away with it, but you'd massively lessen the incidence of online scam ads. I've been done myself. I'm sure most people watching you have been done. I was done by a government website. This is a really common crime. There's a good opportunity for us to do something about it. Let's grasp it.
Can I just ask you, Margaret, can I just ask what happened to you? When you say you got done by a government website, you mean a scam, fake government website? What happened?
DVLA or passport shyster type site. You thought you were filling in an EHIC form, I'm guessing, that type of thing.
I was going for a driving license, right? And I go onto Google, and what comes on top is something saying DVLA with Cardiff. I thought, that's it, filled it in. They asked me for something, I think it was about 35 quid. And I thought, this is a bit odd. I'm sure I shouldn't be paying 35 quid. I was in a hurry. I paid it. I never heard again, and I never got my license.
Well, the advertising industry are going to hate me for saying this, but when you go on a search site, if it says ad on it at the top of a search site, it's an advert. If you're looking for the natural search, scroll down where it doesn't say ad, not just you. Ranvir, you just...
I just literally I had to get a new driving licence and I paid £100, but I just thought that was what you had to pay. I didn't realise that it was free.
So
I didn't realise, and then it kept...
Those are actually not criminal sites, they're shyster sites. They're charging you for something you don't have to pay for, but they're not being slightly dishonest in the law.
I was asking earlier, why can't you sue these people? Like, say if David Beckham's face was used to sell a drink...
Find them
because you can't find who these advertisers are, these thieves
they're
and
like
scammers.
pop-up scammers, aren't
They are, and I can't report them as a crime because I haven't been defrauded.
But image rights, you can't.
You know, some criminal in Romania doesn't care about my image rights, and the problem here, Margaret Hodge just said, what about if we did those two things? Do I agree it would work? I do, and because when I talk to these companies, what they effectively say to me is they say, well, Martin, we absolutely think that this is really important. We have to take consideration. But technologically, it is very difficult to stop scams. And my answer is, don't use technology. Hire real people to vet your ads. It's what happens in online newspapers. It's what happens on television. Why do we allow online advertising not to follow the rules and protocols? Yeah. And the Advertising Standards Authority in Britain was set up to police Procter & Gamble making fake... No. Negatives are there. False claims about soap powder, not to police criminal scammers based in a different country.
But you know what worries me about Teresa's story
is
not just that it was online, was the fact that you spoke to someone on the phone. Now, for someone like me, I think, well, if I've spoken to someone on the phone, that's a real person. It builds trust when you speak to someone.
I'll give you a test. If you got a call from your bank and it said, can you call us back on this number because we've got an inquiry, what would you do?
I have a real issue with the bank calling me on my personal number because I'm always suspicious. I'd rather go into a branch and speak to somebody.
But they're calling you and say, we've got an emergency, can you call me back? Here's a number, what would you do?
I don't know, you'd probably call it, wouldn't you?
Well, what most people tend to say is I'd go and find the real number and I'd make sure I call the real number. And I'd tell you not to do that. Because if someone's sending you a message or you've had a call, they can leave the phone line open.
Yep.
When you dial, they can mimic a dialing tone and mimic you ringing in, and you can still be talking to the scammer even if you find the right number. If you want to call your bank, go and find the right number, call them on a different phone, or call them on the same phone, but dial a friend first, because if you dial your friend and they say, hello, Barclays, well, you know it's a scam.
That's a good idea.
That's how sophisticated
That's a
it
good
is.
idea.
And people think it's just stupid people who get caught by scams. Accountants, university professors, solicitors. Government needs to improve it.
Teresa, yeah.
The other thing that was very convincing for me was that when I was transferring the money from my bank account, it was through, I call it the middleman, I realise now that. Reputable Bitcoin companies are actually the middlemen for the money to be transferred then to the scammers.
Do you know what? I think too much responsibility is on the individual. And far too little responsibility is, as you say, Dame Margaret Hodge, on the people who run these online huge giants who are earning billions. And frankly, I cannot understand why it hasn't been brought. I mean, you know, we've talked about it. They could have fixed it. Dame Margaret Hodge, thank you so much. I'm sorry about what happened to you. Teresa, I know you got half your money back. The bank has helped you out to a certain extent. You're still fighting to get the rest. And good luck with that. A spokesperson for Bear Grylls said they'd been made aware of these scams over the last few years. Bear has spoken publicly to clarify these are not authorised or legitimate, and says it is devastating to hear innocent victims are taken in.